Multimillionaire yells at Waitress, but her incredible response left everyone in shock. Emily wiped her brow as the lunch rush built around her, the familiar chaos of Rosie's diner wrapping her in its embrace. The scent of sizzling bacon mingled with fresh coffee, grounding her as she navigated small tables and busy patrons. She stole a glance at the clock, just one more hour until her shift was over, and she could spend time with Lily, who was studying for her upcoming biology exam. Every minute counted. Every penny earned kept Lily's dreams alive. As she placed down a plate of fried eggs, her mind raced with the best route for that evening's classes. Just then, the door swung open with abruptness, and a man donned in a tailored suit strode in, his expensive shoes clicking sharply against the tiled floor like a ticking clock. All eyes turned to him. Richard, a face Emily recognized from the local news, was known for his wealth, but for his arrogance too. He approached the counter with an air of impatience, barking his order in a voice that echoed across the diner. Her breath caught in her throat. Emily forced herself to remain composed and poured his coffee, her own fingers trembling slightly. A brain full of textbook terms fought with the task of managing this spoiled man's whims. When she returned with his avocado toast, the mishap was quick and humiliating. She accidentally flipped it upside down. "Is this some kind of joke?" His voice boomed, washing over the diner like a tidal wave. Conversations halted. Laughter fizzled to silence. All eyes were now glued to her. Emily stood frozen, her heart racing. She felt a rush of shame and indignation swirl inside. She loved her job, but how could someone expect perfection in such a fast-paced environment? Dread mixed with anger as Richard's acerbic laughter cut through the bewildered silence. "You call yourself a waitress?" His words pierced at her, each syllable a reminder of how hard she had worked to support her daughter. In that moment, a wave of clarity swept over her. She was just a waitress. She was a single mother pouring her heart into every shift, an exhausted student studying late into the night. "I'm sorry, sir," she began, her voice shaking only slightly. What felt like a wall of judgment came crashing down, but she pushed through, sharing bits of her life, the long nights, balancing shifts and studying, the dream of a better future for Lily. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Emily spoke, she watched Richard's facade begin to crack. His booming presence, once overwhelming, now exuded uncertainty. The patrons, captivated, sensed the tension of their worlds colliding. Here was someone who devoted their life to serving while he fought for status. His eyes betrayed a flicker of reflection, a moment of realization. "Maybe you should try standing in someone else's shoes," she finished, her chest heavy with defiance. The diner was charged with palpable tension, a divide unveiled between their lives. Discussions resumed around them, but the vibrant atmosphere shifted, the weight of her vulnerability staggering in its impact. Richard hesitated, his expression morphing, as if he too found himself at a crossroads. Before she could retreat from the scene, he offered an unexpected proposition, a partnership to help Emily further her education and ensure Lily could chase her dreams. Suspicion and surprise wrestled within her, the very fragility of their society magnified beneath the diner's fluorescent lights. Emily stood motionless, torn by a flood of emotions. She understood the weight of his privilege contrasted starkly with her own relentless determination, a mixture of hope and mistrust churned within her. Suddenly, the laughter and chatter of Rosie's melted away, leaving only the remarkable tension hanging like a heavy curtain, waiting for her next move, her heart racing as the undeniable complexity of their differing lives loomed ahead. Emily's heart raced, an urgent rhythm underscoring the pivotal moment before her. Richard stood before her, arms crossed, a flicker of vulnerability momentarily replacing his bluster. The diner buzzed around them, but all she could sense were his eyes, weighing her every intention, every possible choice. This wasn't merely about the blunder over avocado toast anymore. It was a divergence in her life path. A rare opportunity dangled in front of her like a mirage. She inhaled deeply, summoning the courage from the depths of her well-worn resolve. The question loomed. Could she trust him? The towering wall of distrust built over years of struggling felt impenetrable. She witnessed the discontent and disillusionment that accompanied wealth. Yet the potential for change, for freedom, and a brighter future for Lily surged within her, a whispered promise that dared to eclipse her fears. "Why would you want to help me?" she asked, holding his gaze with an intensity fueled by her skepticism. The stakes were high, and she understood the beauty and brutality of this moment. Richard's expression softened, the tough exterior giving way to something more human. "Because I was once in a position where people just saw me for my money and status. I want to make a difference," he replied, his voice steadier than before. "I see something in you, potential, a drive that could flourish with the right support." Her mind spun with conflicting thoughts as the weight of his remark settled heavily on her shoulders. Could she really let someone into her life who had such privilege? Could she accept help, not just for herself, but for her daughter's education and future? She wrestled with the implications. A partnership could mean academic scholarships, mentorship, a means to break the suffocating cycle they existed in. Yet, it also meant placing faith in someone she barely knew. "Look," he continued, "I want to help. But if this is going to work, there's no time for pretense. I need to know you'll commit. No half measures." Emily's heartbeat intensified, his words sharpened her focus. She paused, thinking about those nights lighting the way for Lily's studies with just a single lamp, about the sacrifices she made, grinding through schoolwork that sometimes felt insurmountable. "I will commit. Would you be willing to meet me halfway?" she asked, her composure surprising even herself. The determination wrapped around her like armor. His brow lifted, surprised by her assertiveness. "What do you mean? If you believe in my potential, I can show you. I'll work hard, but I also expect honesty and respect in return. This partnership has to be equal." Richard examined her, weighing her tenacity against all his assumptions. He nodded slowly, a grin forming as if seeing promise where once he only encountered disdain. "All right, I can work with that. We'll draw up terms. I want a clear commitment from both sides." As excitement coursed through her veins, the atmosphere shifted. There was a new energy in the diner, a gentle buzz filling the spaces previously occupied by tension. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt a flicker of hope. After they hashed out the details over coffee, Richard asked her about her goals and ambitions. Enthusiastically, she shared her aspirations, studying biology, maybe pursuing medicine. The dialogue transformed from transactional to genuinely constructive, illuminating corners of her mind that had gathered dust while she focused on survival. Yet amidst this newfound potential, a sliver of doubt cut through her vibrant enthusiasm. Could she handle this change? With each shifting conversation throughout the day, she became more convinced that embracing the unknown might be exactly the path she needed to take. As night fell, she left Rosie S. with a renewed sense of purpose. If her decisions impacted not only her life, but also created an opportunity for Lily, maybe she could navigate this uncharted territory. Yet beneath her excitement, a quiet dread lingered. What if everything fell apart? Would success come painlessly, or would she have to expect setbacks? With thoughts swirling, Emily slipped into the quiet of her home where Lily awaited. Books sprawled across the table. She prepared herself for a moment of truth, an opportunity to share the possibilities of their future. Just as Emily opened her mouth to speak, her phone buzzed. A message from Richard flashed across the screen, turbulent and unsettling as it read. "We need to discuss a personal matter." A knot tightened in her stomach. What now? The undercurrents of their agreement started rippling with uncertainty. She could hardly anticipate what lay on the other side of that screen, but she would have to confront it head-on. Emily stared at the message, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and apprehension. What could Richard possibly want to discuss that required immediate attention? The hopeful day she'd just experienced felt like a flimsy facade, about to unravel under the weight of uncertainty. "Mom?" Lily's small voice called from the kitchen. "Are you okay?" The comfort of her daughter's presence rekindled Emily's steadfastness. She glanced at the untouched textbooks spread out before Lily, a reminder of what was at stake. She took a deep breath, mentally shoving the gnawing doubts aside. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a message from Richard. I'll be right there," she called back, typing a quick response. "Okay. When?" Before closing her phone and walking to the kitchen. "Did you have fun at the diner?" Lily eagerly asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Emily knelt beside her, brushing the hair from her daughter's brow. "It was interesting. I actually talked to a friend about some future plans." Lily's face lit up with enthusiasm. "What plans? Are we going to move? Like stay in a house with a backyard?" For a moment, Emily hesitated. The thought of a more stable life for her daughter tugged at her heart. "Maybe one day, if everything goes well," she said, forcing a smile. "For now, it's about working hard." As Lily returned to her homework, Emily couldn't shake the foreboding sense that Richard's message was a sign of trouble. That seed of doubt began to sprout roots in her mind, and she wrestled with the implications. Acting on the newfound partnership could thrust her into uncharted waters. And what if Richard's intentions weren't as noble as he professed? An hour later, the notification dinged again. Richard's response read simply, "Meet at my office at 10 a.m. tomorrow." It's important. The gravity of the situation pressed down on her chest. What kind of personal matter had he hinted at? Would he reconsider their agreement? Or did this involve something deeper? The night stretched on in an agonizing silence, the shadows twisting around Emily as she lay in bed, wrestling with her thoughts. The prospect of opportunity she'd been seeking was swiftly clouded with doubt, now looming just out of reach. When morning dawned, Emily awoke to a haze of uncertainty. The minutes drifted by as she prepared for the day, her mind racing through every potential scenario. Part of her wanted to turn back, to shield herself from whatever revelation lay ahead, but the flicker of ambition for both her and Lily glowed brighter than her fears. Arriving at Richard's sleek office building, the towering structure seemed to echo her trepidation. She pushed through the glass doors and took the elevator, counting the floors to ground her spiraling thoughts. "Ready or not," she whispered to herself, but the words felt as hollow as her confidence. Richard was waiting, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming. I hope it's nothing too distressing," he began, motioning her to sit. The tension coiled between them like a taut wire. "What is going on, Richard?" she probed, unable to mask the tremor in her voice that he paused, measuring his words. "Before we proceed with our agreement, there is something about my past that you need to understand. I might have been dishonest about some of my financial dealings." Each word fell like a stone, sharp and jarring. Her pulse quickened as Emily felt the world shift beneath her feet. Could this be the perilous crack that jeopardized not only their partnership, but the aspiration she had dared to build upon? The air thickened with tension, wrapping around her like a vice. Whatever Richard's truth was, she prepared to confront it head-on. The moment of clarity was drawing near, and she couldn't back down now. "Just tell me," she urged, her resolve stiffening. "We need to address this. No more pretenses." As Richard opened his mouth to speak, she braced herself, ready to face whatever storm surged from the truth. She had to know if this would either shatter the fragile foundation they were building or propel her into the future she longed for. But would confronting this reality lead her to empowerment or further entrapment? The answer hovered precariously in the air, waiting to be unleashed. Richard exhaled slowly, the silence stretching between them like an unyielding chasm. "I was involved in some questionable investment strategies that weren't disclosed to my partners. Recent audits have raised red flags, and I'm not sure where they lead," he admitted, his voice betraying an unsettling mix of vulnerability and shame. Emily instinctively leaned back in her chair, processing the weight of his admission. The air felt charged, not just with Richard's revelations, but with the realization of how precarious her situation had suddenly become. She had entered this meeting seeking clarity and perhaps a step forward, but now she was caught in a web of uncertainty. "What does that mean for our agreement?" she questioned, her voice steady though her heart raced. She was determined not to reveal how disoriented she truly felt. Richard studied her closely. "I wanted to be upfront with you. There may be fallout that could affect your standing. I understand if you want to walk away." Surprisingly, the suggestion sparked something in Emily. Why should she be afraid of his mistakes? "I need to think about this," she said, masking her tumultuous thoughts with a veneer of calm. This was not just about financial decisions. It was about her autonomy, her aspirations, and her daughter's future. She excused herself from the office, the narrow hall feeling confining as she mulled over the implications. Each step she took toward the exit felt heavier than the last. Could she still forge a path despite Richard's chaotic past? This was, after all, her chance, a chance she had worked tirelessly to create. Outside, the crisp air stung her cheeks, invigorating her resolve. She leaned against the coolness of the building, allowing herself a moment of clarity. Rather than focusing on the risks, what opportunities could emerge from Richard's mess? A seed of an idea began to bloom. Perhaps this experience could evolve into a teachable moment for her. If she could navigate this minefield, she would be showcasing her worth, proving to herself what she was capable of achieving. Returning home, Emily engaged Lily in conversation about her own day. She shared snippets of her experience, the excitement of potential growth, the challenges of navigating complex waters. The way her daughter listened brought a glow of courage to Emily's chest. That evening, armed with the clarity gained from her day, she submerged herself in research. While the financial landscape had always felt like foreign terrain to her, she harnessed determination to seize control of this nightmare. She began outlining her next steps as if the future hinged on a well-structured plan. She started to analyze the possibility of seeking legal guidance to protect her interests, researching the provisions that could shield her from any backlash stemming from Richard's dealings. As she developed this plan, she felt herself transforming. Each new piece of information added to her confidence, making the vision of success clearer and more attainable. The days that followed involved phone calls with advisors, endless reading of legal documents, and more crucially, mastering the art of negotiation. She refused to let Richard's storm overshadow her potential. Each time she navigated through questions and clarifications, she unearthed courage she didn't know she possessed, but there were moments of doubt. What if her efforts were in vain? What if Richard's past pulled her down with him? Those thoughts haunted her nights, but the stirring ambition for a better life for Lily served as a powerful motivator. One evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, her daughter looked up at her, eyes wide with admiration. "Mom, you're really brave," she said. "I want to be like you one day." The words struck Emily with both gratitude and determination. This was about more than just her career now. It was about modeling resilience and tenacity for her daughter. However, beneath the proud facade, Emily felt the ground tremble again. Richard had texted a meeting was scheduled for the next day. "We need to discuss options moving forward." The invitation stirred a mix of anticipation and dread within her. Would he face his tumultuous past, or simply present a new set of obstacles? As she reflected on her journey thus far, Emily realized the next confrontation would either solidify her newfound confidence or challenge it in ways she hadn't yet prepared for. Gazing out the window into the cool night, her resolve began to harden once more. She had the tools now, she just needed the right mindset. But could she truly steer the ship without capsizing? The upcoming meeting could redefine everything. Emily woke early, the pale dawn light flooding her room, illuminating the shadows of doubt that had seeped into her mind overnight. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, feeling the cool floor beneath her feet as she prepared herself for the uncertainty ahead. Today was not just another day. It was a potential turning point, and she needed every ounce of resolve she had cultivated. As she sipped her coffee, its warmth surged through her, igniting a spark of determination. She traced the rim of her mug, considering the possibilities that lay before her. The meeting with Richard wasn't merely a simple discussion about investment strategies. It was the battleground where she'd either affirm her newfound agency or falter under the pressure of his chaotic legacy. Lily's soft footsteps interrupted her thoughts as the girl shuffled sleepily into the kitchen. Emily knelt to meet her at eye level, brushing stray hair from her daughter's forehead. "Big day today, Mom?" Lily asked, her voice a blend of innocence and curiosity. "Yes, but I'm ready," Emily replied, a sense of courage fortifying her tone. She was forging into her own depths, no longer merely a participant in life, but a decisive player. After breakfast, she donned her most professional outfit, a charcoal blazer that hugged her shoulders with a structured assertiveness. She studied herself in the mirror, squaring her shoulders and standing taller. The reflection staring back held not just a mother, but a woman ready to navigate an intricate world of finance and personal legacy. The drive to Richard's office felt heavy with implications. Each passing street sign seemed to taunt her with reminders of the life she envisioned versus the uncertainties looming ahead. What would she say? How would she articulate her vision without sounding defensive or overwhelmed? Upon arrival, the office loomed larger than life. The glass facade reflected her internal struggle, a delicate interplay of anxiety and ambition. As she walked through the reception, she steeled herself for the confrontation ahead. Richard greeted her with an uneasy smile, his disheveled state suggesting sleepless nights. The tension that had persisted since their last meeting lingered palpably in the air. "Thank you for coming, Emily," he said, attempting to settle into a conversational tone. "Let's cut to the chase," Emily replied, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. She had rehearsed her agenda, prepared to assert herself as an equal rather than a subordinate. "I need transparency about what is going on with your investments and how they may affect our agreement." Richard's expression shifted from surprise to apprehension. "I understand, but you should realize that if things don't align with the recent audits, the impact could ripple into your part of the arrangement," he warned, his tone more solemn. Emily squared her shoulders again, feeling every heartbeat hammering against her resolve. "I'm willing to accept the risks, but I need to know your plan for mitigating the fallout. My interests can't be jeopardized, and neither can Lily's future." Surprisingly, Richard remained quiet, analyzing her words. Perhaps he hadn't anticipated her assertiveness, the clarity in her stance shining through the fog of his own uncertainty. This hesitation created a momentary gap, an opening where Emily could insert herself fully into the conversation. "Let's outline the potential fallout. I want to explore feasible ways to protect my stake," she suggested, her voice gaining confidence. The dialogue shifted from a defensive posture to a collaborative one, her ideas woven into Richard's fraying fabric. As they delved deeper into the projections and strategies, Emily felt the tension begin to dissipate. Her mind clicked into action, articulating her thoughts with a fluency that surprised even herself. Each question she posed sharpened the conversation, drawing Richard into the realization that she was no longer merely a novice naive to the cutthroat financial world. Minutes turned to hours, and as they neared the conclusion, Emily could sense the transformation taking place. She wasn't just an observer. She was actively crafting her path. Richard's admissions were accompanied by a reluctant respect, aligning their agendas amid the chaos he brought into her life. But just as she felt herself gaining momentum, he leaned back, a troubled look creeping back across his face. "Even if we establish a solid plan, there's no guarantee it'll work given the scrutiny we're facing from partners. The stakes are high, and I can't risk dragging you down with me." The tone of his voice unmade the ground beneath her feet, and suddenly, all the strategies in the world felt fragile. Would he pull the rug out from under her after all this effort? She could feel herself teetering at the edge of a precipice. Determined not to allow fear to control her next move, Emily leaned forward, steady and resolute. No matter what happens, I won't let the fear of your past dictate my future. As they locked eyes, she saw a flicker of admiration mixed with concern. Today had not just been about navigating Richard's legacy. It was about asserting her right to shape her destiny, laying the foundation for an undeniably different future. Will she foster this newfound boldness into an unwavering fortitude, or will fear overshadow her hard-earned resolve? The answers lay just beyond the next confrontation. The ride back from Richard's office was a haze of adrenaline and fresh uncertainty. Emily gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white with tension as conflicting thoughts surged through her mind. She had stood her ground, she reminded herself, even if she felt like a knife caught between two powerful forces. That moment of clarity where she had challenged Richard's notion that her future hinged on his decisions felt empowering. Yet, cracks formed in her newfound confidence. She couldn't shake the unease that loomed just behind her assertion. Had she truly gotten through to him? Would he respect her stance? Or was it merely a flicker of admiration mixed with insignificance in his grander scheme? The doubt gnawed at her, but amidst those shadows dwelled a flicker of resolve. Once home, Emily entered the familiar cocoon of her life with Lily. The cheerful chatter from her daughter played like a balm to her frayed nerves. They created a little ritual after school, an hour reserved just for reading together on the living room couch. Today, Lily chose a vibrant, colorful book about a brave adventurer. Emily couldn't help but smile at the contrasting spirit of the story, a brave hero facing immense challenges, akin to her own growing battle against obstacles. As they settled in, Emily's mind was still half elsewhere. Midway through the story, Lily concluded a fantastical sequence with a satisfied clap, spinning her feet off the edge of the couch. "Mom, do you think I could do something amazing like that one day?" Emily's heart swelled. Here was her daughter, innocent yet so perceptive. "Absolutely, sweetheart. You're brave in your own way every single day," she replied, a bittersweet intensity in her voice. Moments like this illuminated the complexity of her journey. Who was she if not a beacon for Lily? Would she inspire her daughter to be bold while she herself wavered between strength and doubt? The evening flowed into twilight. Their shared laughter and bonding held a comforting reverberation that lingered just as much as the stress from earlier hung over her. Lily went off to bed, sleep overtaking her youthful energy sooner than expected. Emily lingered a moment longer, watching the peaceful rise and fall of her daughter's chest, a picture of potential and dreams yet to unfold. Once alone, Emily returned to the kitchen table with a notebook and pen. She needed to extract every ounce of understanding from today as confrontation. Flipping the pages, she launched into the task of outlining her next steps to the big ideas, the necessary risks. She poured her concerns into words, dissecting her thoughts in a way that transformed the chaotic internal debate into structured clarity. As she wrote, confidence surged within her once more. She was merely an extension of Richard's legacy. She was building her own narrative. "What I really want," she murmured to herself. Suddenly, a thought jolted her mind. What if she could improve not only her own circumstances, but also aid others grappling with Richard's sprawling influence? The idea was revolutionary. Leverage her agency beyond the constraints of her immediate connection with Richard. It was a vastly ambitious goal, yet resided firmly within her reach. She began jotting down potential avenues, community workshops, investment clubs, anything that could harness shared knowledge. Hours passed unnoticed, an intoxicating flow of ideas consuming her as the world outside darkened. But amidst this newfound direction simmered a fresh wave of anxiety. Would this ambitious vision be met with skepticism or support? Enthusiasm tinged with apprehension danced through her thoughts, reminding her of the hurdles she might face on this uncharted path. Her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. It was Richard, messaging her meta updates about their meeting. A chill skittered up her spine. Was he checking on her? Or could he already be regretting their partnership? She steeled herself before responding. Each tap of her fingers a measured decision weighed against uncertainty. Thank you for today. I look forward to our next steps, she wrote, suppressing any hint of vulnerability. She felt like she was playing chess, each move calculated, but when she hit send, urgency rushed through her veins. As the night stretched on, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at the precipice of a grand opportunity, but what awaited her on the other side? Had she built a bridge, or was it merely a tightrope? Tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps even revelations, but one thing was clear: she would rise to meet them. With the weight of possibility cloaked around her, she finally closed her eyes, thoughts whirling with excitement and lingering doubts, ready to face whatever awaited her in the morning. What if the very thing she sought to protect became the catalyst for something even greater? Morning sunlight streamed into Emily's bedroom, pulling her from restless dreams that danced between ambition and fear. She blinked against the light, her mind immediately racing back to the previous night's reflections. The ideas she had captured in her notebook had ignited something unrecognizable within her. But now, with the dawn, she needed a tangible plan. She threw on her favorite blazer, the one that felt almost like armor, and smoothed her hair back into place. The reflection in the mirror showed a woman caught midway between her former self and the leader she aspired to be. Each day was a chance to carve out more of her identity beyond Richard's shadow, yet the path seemed riddled with uncertainties. The brisk air outside was invigorating as she stepped into her car, a reminder of what lay ahead: meetings, decisions, and the looming presence of Richard. Today, she had resolved not to shrink under that pressure. Instead, she would use it to fuel the fire of her emerging vision. At her desk, she unfolded the pages of her notebook, now filled with half-formed ideas and bold plans. The first task was clear: organize a workshop that focused on empowering women in leadership. It had to be legitimate and impactful, serving as her inaugural step toward not just personal growth, but as a movement towards shifting the status quo. The deep pulse of determination surged within her as she began to draft an email to potential co-hosts. Local businesswomen, mentors, and people whose work she admired. The connections she planned to foster were crucial. Each name on her list was a potential ally, a bridge to a vibrant future. Taking a deep breath, her fingers flew across the keyboard, translating emotion into action. The excitement blossomed. She couldn't wait to pitch her vision and invite them to collaborate. But as she hovered her finger over the send button, doubts surged like a wave crashing against her confidence. Will they take her seriously? Did she have enough clout to pull this off? Just 24 hours ago, she fought to assert her authority in a boardroom. Now, did she have the same courage to believe in her ideas? She hesitated for a moment longer before pressing send. The email sliced through the uncertainty like a knife. It couldn't be undone, and it felt liberating. At that moment, she realized that this was a critical shift. She had stepped beyond introspection and launched herself into proactive territory. Minutes later, her phone buzzed again, but this time it was different. It was a group text from Richard calling for an immediate meeting. Her heart tightened, the familiar sensation of anxiety intertwined with anticipation. As she arrived at the meeting room, Richard's presence loomed larger than life, embellished by a group of senior executives. They all leaned in, absorbing everything he said. Emily slipped in her chair, her stomach twisting, bracing herself for whatever was about to unfold. "Great to see you all," Richard announced, his authoritative presence cracking through the tension. "We need to discuss ways to innovate our outreach efforts." I hope Emily has some insights pertinent to this. The spotlight shifted onto her, and for a moment, the world blurred. The words she had crafted a moment ago felt distant from what she was about to face. Instead of retreating, she took a breath, her thoughts crystallizing. "Actually, I do have some ideas," she began, her voice firm against the backdrop of scrutiny. She shared her vision for workshops aimed at fostering the next wave of female leaders. her voice unwavering despite the skeptical furrows on the other executive's brows. Richard raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Was this acceptance, or merely another challenge? The silence in the room was palpable. As she spoke, she could feel an internal shift of resolve taking root that outweighed her fears. Every nod from Richard, every slight murmur of agreement from the room pushed her forward, driven by a blend of hope and desperation. Then, she spotted a role model behind Richard, a senior female executive known for her influence. Their eyes met, and Emily caught an unexpected spark of understanding. "Let us do something different," the woman chimed in halfway through Emily's pitch. "It's time we supported our future leaders. We can partner on this initiative." The relief that washed over Emily was palpable, but it reminded her that she still had to convince Richard. "What makes you so certain this will succeed?" he countered, punctuating the air with skepticism. It was clear this was the moment of truth for her proposal. Emily swallowed, the weight of the moment settling into her shoulders. "Because we're losing talented individuals to stagnation. The industry needs diverse voices to truly innovate. If we don't adapt, we'll continue to fall behind." The passion in her voice caught the attention of others, propelling her forward. The room erupted into debate, each word and gesture pulling her into a deeper confrontation, not just with Richard, but with her fears. This engagement wasn't merely a test of resolve. It was a demonstration of her capacity to lead, to influence ideas that resonated beyond her own aspirations. Doubts still lay dormant in the depths of her mind, but the emerging dynamic shifted. What if this was the moment where she could truly plant the seeds of change? The air crackled with potential, and as the meeting progressed, Emily prepared for the fight of her life. What awaited her at the conclusion of this discussion would either bolster her emerging presence or challenge her conception of success altogether. Little did she know, a revelation was coming not just about the meeting, but the deeply embedded structures around her world and the roles they dictated. Would she break through, or would she fold? As the conversation heated, Emily found herself at the nexus of her growth, one decision away from redefining not only her own future, but possibly that of others waiting for their moment. Emily's heart raced as the debate intensified. Voices clashed, and the energy in the room shifted from skepticism to a murmur of agreement. For every argument Richard cast against her proposal, Emily countered with fervor, her convictions sharpening with each exchange. A piece of her, long silenced, surged forth alive, dangerous, and ready to confront the status quo. She had always been the listener, ready to embrace support, but hesitant to demand space for her voice. The feeling of power rising within her acted as a catalyst, forcing her to shed old insecurities and pull from the reservoir of ambition she had suppressed for so long. Each nod of acknowledgement from the executives around the table began to feel less like mere agreement and more like fuel on her fire. "Let me be clear, we cannot afford to overlook half of our talent pool," she stated, her tone steady and assertive. Richard, though visibly inclined to challenge her, kept silent for a moment. The pause was heavy, pregnant with the weight of her words, and she seized it. "We have to create opportunities for women to step into leadership roles. If we don't, we risk losing not only innovation but the heart of our organization." The senior female executive who had initially supported her crossed her arms, thoughtfully contemplating Emily's points. "Emily makes a compelling case," she said, looking directly at Richard. "If we encourage a diverse leadership, we signal that we are serious about progress. This is not just about workshops, it's about a cultural shift." The tension in the room shifted, but Richard's gaze narrowed. He was not ready to concede defeat just yet. "It sounds ambitious, but we need metrics, a clear return on investment. Without concrete plans and outcomes, how can I convince the board?" In that moment, she felt like the matador in a dangerous dance with a bull. She had to outmaneuver Richard's challenges with skill and confidence. "I agree," she conceded, masking the surge of fear underneath a fear that begged her to retreat. That's why I've been working on a detailed framework that outlines potential success stories and measurable outcomes of similar initiatives. A blueprint that aligns with our financial goals. Emily fished through her notes, scrambling to display a semblance of organization amidst the chaos. Her hands felt clammy, but she steadied them against the desk. As she pulled out the sheets, she felt exposed yet oddly fortified. The notes bore traces of her late-night work, painstakingly constructed, and encapsulated a potential roadmap for not just metrics, but trust in her abilities. Showing the documents felt like laying bare her vulnerabilities for all to see. Yet as she began to articulate each detail, piecing together examples of organizations that had succeeded in implementing similar strategies, she found her rhythm. The momentum shifted as she articulated how they could benchmark success against previous outreach campaigns, focusing on qualitative feedback alongside quantitative data. Richard's demeanor changed slightly, and though there was still a flicker of skepticism in his eyes, there was also a curious interest. Was he finally beginning to see her worth as more than Richard's assistant? The room felt charged, an undercurrent of solidarity weaving between Emily and her newfound allies. "Apologies for intervening," Richard finally said, pushing back against a seething skepticism. "But I still have questions, serious concerns about resource allocation and how this fits into our strategic initiatives." Having gained ground, Emily knew this was where she could swing the tide. Every initiative requires investment. Richard, particularly those that challenge de facto norms, she said, her voice unwavering. But think of it as a strategic advantage that could yield insights and innovations that align with the company's goals. Our competitors are already ahead on this front. She caught the glances of her colleagues, interest peaked, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. This was more than a meeting. It was a transformative moment threading through the complexities of identity and ambition. Emily stood at the precipice of change, not just for herself, but for every underrepresented voice that had ever been stifled in similar boardrooms. Richard looked around the table, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if the world shifted. But before he could respond, a phone buzzed, cutting through the tension, an urgent message that drew his attention. Emily felt a cold rush of anxiety. Would he dismiss everything she had worked for in the interim? As he read the message, his features hardened, and Emily detected the faintest crack in his armor. "We need to put this on hold," he announced brusquely. "I have an emergency to attend to." With that, he rose, leaving the room permeated with suspended energy. As the meeting adjourned, Emily found her colleagues gathered closer, their whispers harmonizing a shared enthusiasm. They lingered, eager for what Emily had ignited among them. Minutes later, she found herself alone in the room, everything swirling within her. Had she challenged the abyss only to watch it retreat? Or would this be the beginning of a deeper confrontation, one that she had to conduct on her own terms? Amid her triumph, another truth began to awaken within her, a nagging realization of the sacrifices she might have to make as she pursued this path. What awaited her outside the relative safety of the boardroom? The journey of transformation was just beginning, and she could sense the storms brewing both within and outside herself. As she collected her papers, Emily swore to herself she wouldn't shy away from the battles ahead. But deep down, uncertainty simmered. Would she find allies willing to stand beside her when the stakes grew higher? Emily returned home with a swirl of emotions coursing through her. The boardroom's fluorescent lights faded from her vision, replaced by the soft glow of her living room lamp. She tossed her notes on the coffee table, still trembling with adrenaline. The exhilaration from the meeting felt like a double-edged sword, both empowering and frightening. As she sank into the couch, she replayed her arguments in her mind. Each rebuttal against Richard had been a small victory, yet another layer of pressure settled over her. A sudden thought struck her. Had she really steered the conversation toward real change? Or was it simply an opportunistic chance for Richard to regroup, to strategize in private where she couldn't challenge him? The reality of her situation loomed like a shadow. Just as quickly as she had gained momentum, she faced uncertainty about whether she could sustain it. She recalled her insecurities, the remnants of a past where she had often stood in the wings, hesitant to step into the spotlight. Would she now be faced with a backlash, not just professionally, but personally as well? Her mind buzzed with realizations. Emily realized that her growth required more than just seizing opportunities in meetings. It demanded an unwavering commitment to advocacy for herself as well as others. She needed to start seeing herself not just as a cog in a corporate machine, but as a force of change capable of reshaping the environmental landscape of the workplace. Determined to solidify her newfound purpose, she logged on her laptop and began drafting an email. It was time to reach out to her allies in the company, the executives who had shown glimmers of support. She knew they were crucial to sustaining the wave of momentum she had sparked. As her fingers danced over the keyboard, she expressed her gratitude for their support in the meeting and invited them for a brainstorming session to explore further actions. As she wrote, a thought flickered in her mind, one that started as a quiet nagging but blossomed into clarity. She had the chance to create a network of advocates around her, not only to strengthen her initiative, but also to establish a culture of shared leadership. But vulnerability nagged at her. What if they weren't willing to risk their positions? What if they were content with the status quo? Almost automatically, she began to doubt her instincts. What if she was simply a flicker of hope in a sea of apathy? The draft was alive with potential, yet it echoed a stark awareness of the risks involved in pursuing a bold agenda. Her heart beat in tandem with her thoughts, each pulse urging her to push past the fear. After a deep breath, she hit send, an act that felt both liberating and terrifying. Just as she leaned back on the couch, her phone rang, the familiar ringtone jarring her from contemplation. It was her mentor, Sam, a mentoring partnership she had gradually distanced herself from. The complexity of their dynamic was riddled with past lessons that tugged at her. She hesitated, thoughts racing. Was this call about the meeting? Would he reinforce her instincts or discourage her from taking risks? Sliding her thumb across the screen, she answered, uncertainty pooling in her stomach. Emily, Sam began, voice steady but infused with urgency. I heard about the initiative you presented. We need to talk. His tone sent a shiver down her spine. She wondered what lay beneath the surface of his words. Did he support her newfound ambition, or was he reminding her of the challenges that awaited her in pursuing meaningful change? Just as she opened her mouth to respond, Sam continued, there are forces at play that you may not be aware of. It's time to prepare yourself. Her heart raced. What did he mean? The situation felt precarious, her journey teetering on the edge of revelation and challenge. This was only the beginning of what lay ahead. The seeds of her ambition had been sown, yet they were budding against a backdrop of conflict. Emily felt she was stepping onto a battlefield, one she could not navigate alone. What awaited her in the pursuit of change? Would the values she held close withstand the fervor of opposition that was inevitably approaching? Emily's determination flared brightly amid the uncertainty. She would learn to confront her demons head-on, acquiring strength from both allies and adversaries alike. Emily stood in the bustling Rosie's diner, a world away from the self-doubt that had once shackled her. Her heart beat steadily now, a strong rhythm echoing her growth. No longer just a waitress supporting her daughter, Lily, she had transformed into a formidable advocate for herself and women like her, a force to be reckoned with in the boardroom. After that pivotal encounter with Richard, Emily had embraced the challenge of shaping her destiny. Crafting workshops to empower women in leadership roles became her central mission. She had navigated the intricate dance between fostering partnerships and demanding respect. Each meeting, each conversation, solidified her resolve to bridge the disparity that had long hindered so many. Today, as she stood before colleagues, speaking with an unwavering authority, she felt the tide shift. We can't afford to overlook half of our talent pool, she declared, her voice cutting through the cacophony of assembly. Their nods of agreement fueled her confidence, urging her to dig deeper. The skepticism she once feared transformed into anticipation. She was no longer a footnote in someone else's story. Her recent initiatives had attracted positive attention, and the momentum she cultivated was palpable. Richard had seen the value in her proposals, no longer dismissing her as merely a waitress, but acknowledging her as a partner who could reshape the corporate narrative. The walls that had once confined her crumbled into dust with each challenge she rose to meet head-on, replacing doubt with competence. In the months that followed, Emily adeptly orchestrated events that fostered dialogue and development among aspiring female leaders. The workshops resonated, attendance skyrocketing as the community rallied around her vision of inclusivity and empowerment. People began to see her not as a temporary participant in the workplace, but as a leader who brought tangible changes. She proved that feminist advocacy wasn't merely an abstract notion, but a grounded reality that could be cultivated through intentional action. The unexpected validation came one evening as she hosted an event that featured speakers from various industries. In front of a room packed with eager minds, a senior executive recognized her dedication. "Emily, your efforts have sparked a much-needed dialogue," he said, heartfelt and sincere. "You are laying the groundwork for the future of our company." Their words hung in the air, electrifying those in attendance with the promise of change not just for women, but for the entire organization. A cultural shift bubbling forth from her tireless advocacy. Moving from aspirations to accomplishment, Emily celebrated her professional achievements without shying away from the emotional weight they carried. Each workshop she conducted, every networking session she hosted, translated into measurable growth within the organization. They achieved higher engagement rates among employees, cultivating a sense of community that had previously been absent. Lily often joined her at these events, soaking in the atmosphere of empowerment. "I'm proud of you, Mom," she whispered one evening, beaming up at her. The validation resonated deeply. It was one thing to demonstrate change, but another to inspire the next generation, empowering Lily to reach for her dreams. As Emily navigated the upward trajectory of her newfound career, she often reflected on the journey, the dark corners she had traversed to reach this point. The moment she stood up to Richard and demanded respect was a pivotal shift, aiding in her evolution from suffocation to expression. All the sleepless nights, imagining a brighter future, transformed into actionable steps that were now tangible achievements. Determined to embed her lessons into the fabric of her initiatives, Emily reached out to other women and encouraged them to share their stories. She wanted to amplify their voices, creating a powerful ripple of growth within the community. Her ambition had become a movement not just in her life or Richard's company, but in the very culture surrounding her. The day she secured funding for her workshops from the company felt surreal. She coordinated the logistics and pitched her plan to investors who once dismissed her as unworthy of their time. Their eventual buy-in wasn't merely professional validation. It solidified her worth to herself, to her daughter, and to her community. She had conquered the fear of inadequacy and transformed it into a beacon of strength. Richard stood beside her during the official announcement, his nod of approval a symbolic endorsement of her journey. "This is only the beginning," he proclaimed, highlighting her contributions in front of the executives who had once doubted her. As the light of day faded, Emily held a sense of fulfilled purpose, genuine pride swelling in her chest. She had become a dependable figure, a role model who inspired change far beyond what she had once thought imaginable. Her journey underscored the essence of transformation, an unrelenting commitment to growth that pulsed through her, steady and sure. Emily knew that the road ahead would still harbor challenges, but the markers of resilience she had placed on her journey would not falter or fade. She had established herself, not just as a survivor, but as a formidable architect of her future, one crafted through ambition, partnership, and genuine vision. And as the day ended, she felt a profound connection to her story, pulsing with purpose, and that was the achievement she had fought so hard to realize. Now is the time to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Your engagement is crucial. Comment your thoughts and reactions to this incredible conclusion. Did you see it coming? What were your predictions along the way? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this story of triumph and personal growth. Let them witness the journey of transformation and inspire their own paths. Let us spread this message of empowerment together.